Welcome back to AMTV News. I'm your anchor, Topher Morrison. It's Tuesday, December 11th, 2012. The fiscal cliff is a contrived American political phenomenon. As economist Steve Keen recently highlighted for Congress, the fiscal cliff is a new phenomenon in American politics. Whereas our politicians have historically been inept in relevant and productive decision-making, aside from decades of bipartisan binge borrowing and spending from yet unknown generations of Americans, Congress has created for itself a cliff, which rather than as usual, when no decision is made and nothing is accomplished, something will occur. Thus, should we find ourselves careening off the fiscal cliff, we shall have exhausted this century's supply of irony. Our fiscal blight is nothing new in the developed world. Europe suffers equally, if not ahead of schedule, as does Japan. Problem is, what is more abhorrent than toxic assets are real solutions. Europe, for instance, hopes Greece and other economic red-headed stepchildren will still be totally broke in 8 years. Obama seemingly envisages the same. Soaking the kinda rich will only halve the deficit unless coupled with an equal amount of spending cuts, about $600 billion, but both will kill this economic non-recovery. As Phoenix Capital Research, writing for Zero Hedge, aptly points out, real ideas like total default, wiping out all bad debt, and massive economic structural changes like those instituted in Iceland are unfortunately Capitol Hill's oldest politically toxic asset. It's what a local bank could never do. Europe's largest bank by market share, HSBC, will pay $1.9 billion to settle a U.S. money laundering probe. In other words, roughly just 9% of its 2012 pre-tax profit. And investors aren't worried. Stocks actually traded just higher today. Accountability. Evidently violating the bank's secrecy and trading with the enemy acts result in a slap on the wrist. We'll call it a judicial bailout. HSBC transferred $7 billion in cash from its branch in Mexico to the U.S., a clear sign drug sales were likely involved. It also dealt with similar loose controls in Saudi Arabia and Bangladesh, thought to have helped fund al-Qaeda, and also had financial dealings in Iran, prohibited under U.S. sanctions. Since 2009, megabanks including Lloyds, ING, Credit Suisse, Royal Bank of Scotland, and Standard Chartered have paid over $4.5 billion in such settlements. HSBC Chief Executive Stuart Gulliver has apologized repeatedly, claims HSBC is fundamentally a different entity than it was just a few years ago. However, with nobody going to jail and trading up on such embarrassing news, it's likely Jimmy Gurul, former U.S. Attorney General, now professor at Notre Dame, is correct when he says this makes a mockery of the criminal justice system. As long as you're working for a major bank, you're left unaccountable, regardless of how egregious the offense.
And by the way, what we shouldn't do, I just got to say this, what we shouldn't be doing is trying to take away your rights to bargain for better wages and working together. We shouldn't be doing that.
Michigan's right to work battle. In my rebuke of Republican hemming and hawing over their loss of the White House, I reiterated the fact that the GOP has one of its largest holdings of federal government positions, and certainly of governorships and state legislatures. This couldn't be more clearly illustrated than in the home of the labor movement itself and Michigan's right to work fight. The mitten, which Mitt evidently could not fit in, has ironically, considering its staunch liberal pro-union stigma, a Republican House and Senate, and according to its Republican Governor Rick Snyder, if a right-to-work bill hits his desk, he'll sign it, which has big unions in a fervor. Right to work doesn't mean right to a job, rather right to work without a union boss saying you can't. Middle-class jobs are different today than when they were when we pounded steel and smelted iron. They are white-collar, independent, high-tech, and entrepreneurial. Big unions have been great at securing benefits, pensions, and a living wage, but have lagged in keeping their members educated and relevant, hence their relevance. On this day in 1931, the Statute of Westminster was passed by Great Britain's Parliament. The importance? It signaled the effective legislative independence of Canada, the Irish Free State, and the Union of South Africa. While there may be a difference between secession and granting great or ultimate autonomy, the result is the same: a more responsive and representative government. Who would argue that these countries are not better off on their own than with London manipulating their affairs from thousands of miles away? Imagine if they all had to suffer Great Britain's economic associations with the EU or its slogging economy. Capturing every corner of the alternative media, watch AMTV News Monday through Friday. For more videos like these, visit amtvmedia.com, home of the AMTV network, the voice of independence.